What if I told you? Your body already knows how to burn fat fast, efficiently, and naturally, but there's one hidden switch, and if it's turned on, your body will refuse to burn fat no matter how hard you try. That switch is insulin. You've been told that fat loss is about eating less and moving more, but what if the real reason your body refuses to burn fat has nothing to do with effort and everything to do with a single invisible signal inside your body? Right now, as you're watching this, your body is making a decision, a silent chemical decision that determines whether you burn fat for fuel or store it for later. That decision is controlled by one powerful hormone, insulin. And if this signal is constantly elevated, your body is not in fat burning mode. It's in survival mode, storing, protecting, and holding on to fat no matter how hard you try to lose it. This isn't about willpower. This isn't about discipline. This is about biology. Every time you eat, especially foods that rapidly raise blood sugar, your pancreas releases insulin, a hormone designed to move glucose out of your bloodstream and into your cells. This is essential for survival. But here's the part most people never hear. Insulin doesn't just manage blood sugar. It controls whether your body is allowed to access stored fat. When insulin is high, your fat cells are essentially locked, sealed shut by a powerful biochemical signal that says, do not release energy. It doesn't matter if you ate healthy. It doesn't matter if you exercised. It doesn't matter if you're in a calorie deficit. If insulin remains elevated, fat burning is suppressed. Studies in metabolic physiology consistently show that elevated insulin levels inhibit lipolysis, the process your body uses to break down fat into usable fuel. In simple terms, high insulin turns fat burning off. Now think about the modern lifestyle for a moment. Breakfast at 8, snack at 10. Lunch at 1, snack at 4, dinner at 8, maybe something sweet before bed. From morning to night, insulin rises again and again, wave after wave, never truly dropping low enough to unlock fat stores. This constant elevation creates a metabolic environment where your body becomes dependent on incoming energy instead of using what it has already stored. And over time, something even more concerning begins to happen. Your cells start to resist insulin's signal. This condition, known as insulin resistance, means your body needs to produce even more insulin to achieve the same effect. Higher insulin, more fat storage, less fat burning, a cycle that feeds itself, a cycle that traps people for years. This is why someone can be eating less, exercising more, doing everything they were told, and still not see results, because the switch that controls fat burning was never flipped. But here's where the story changes. Your body is not broken. It is incredibly intelligent. It is designed to switch between fuel sources seamlessly, efficiently, powerfully. When insulin drops low enough, your body begins to access stored fat, breaking it down into fatty acids, converting part of it into ketones, and using it as a clean, stable source of energy. This is not a trend. This is not a hack. This is a natural metabolic state that humans have relied on for thousands of years. Periods of low food availability force the body to adapt, to survive, to burn its own stored energy. And that mechanism still exists inside you right now. But it only activates under one condition. Insulin must come down. This is the insulin switch most people never fix. They focus on what to eat, but ignore when they eat. They focus on calories, but ignore hormones. They follow plans, but never address the signal controlling everything. And without fixing that signal, the body stays stuck. But when you begin to understand this, everything changes. You stop blaming yourself. You stop chasing extreme diets. You stop forcing your body into exhaustion. Instead, you start working with your biology. You begin creating space between meals, allowing insulin to fall naturally. You start choosing foods that don't spike blood sugar aggressively, helping maintain metabolic balance. You reduce constant stimulation, giving your body the chance to reset. And slowly, almost quietly, the shift begins. Your hunger stabilizes, cravings lose their grip, energy becomes more consistent, no longer tied to the next meal. And fat, the very thing your body was holding on to, begins to be used as fuel, not because you forced it, but because you finally removed the barrier. Research in metabolic health continues to support this concept, showing that lowering insulin levels improves the body's ability to access stored fat and enhances metabolic flexibility, the ability to switch between fuel sources efficiently. This is why approaches like reducing frequent eating, focusing on whole foods, and incorporating structured fasting windows are often associated with improved fat metabolism and better insulin regulation. Not because they are magic, but because they address the root cause. And that root cause is insulin. This is not about extremes. This is not about perfection. This is about understanding the signal and respecting it. Because once you fix the signal, the system starts to work again. Fat loss becomes less of a struggle and more of a natural outcome. So if you've been stuck, if you've been frustrated, if you've been doing everything right, but seeing nothing change, take a step back, look beyond calories, look beyond trends, and ask yourself one powerful question. Is my body actually in a state that allows fat burning to happen? Because if insulin is constantly elevated, the answer is no. But the moment that changes, the moment insulin drops, the moment your body is finally given permission to access its stored energy, everything begins to shift. And for the first time, it doesn't feel like a fight anymore. It feels like your body is finally on your side. You walk into a grocery store thinking you're making the right choices, reaching for foods labeled healthy, natural, even low fat, believing every decision is moving you closer to fat loss. But what if the truth is far more unsettling? What if the very foods you trust the most are quietly keeping your body stuck? Because the real danger isn't obvious junk food, it's the hidden metabolic trap, the one disguised as health. Every day, millions of people replace processed foods with smoothies, granola bowls, fruit juices, and low-fat snacks, believing they've solved the problem. But beneath the surface, something very different is happening inside the body. Blood sugar rises, sometimes rapidly, and insulin follows. Not dramatically enough to alarm you, not visibly enough to notice, but consistently enough to keep your body locked out of fat-burning mode. This is the hidden problem most people miss. It's not that you're eating too much, it's that your body is receiving the wrong signals over and over again. Take a typical healthy breakfast, a fruit smoothie blended with bananas, berries, maybe a little honey. It feels clean, refreshing, nutrient-rich, but from a metabolic perspective, it can act very similarly to a sugary drink. When fruit is consumed whole, fiber slows down absorption, but when blended, that natural barrier is reduced, allowing sugars to enter the bloodstream more quickly, triggering a stronger insulin response. And insulin doesn't ask whether the sugar came from candy or fruit. It responds to glucose. Now layer that with granola, often marketed as heart healthy, yet frequently packed with added sugars, syrups, and refined grains, creating a combination that spikes blood sugar and insulin in ways most people never realize. Even foods labeled low fat can contribute to the problem. When fat is removed, something has to replace it. And often it's sugar or refined carbohydrates to maintain taste. So while you think you're making a lighter choice, your body experiences a stronger insulin response, reinforcing the very cycle you're trying to escape. And then there are the snacks, small, frequent, seemingly harmless. A handful of crackers, a protein bar, a flavored yogurt. Each one creates a small rise in insulin. Individually, they don't seem significant, but together they form a pattern, a continuous elevation that never allows your body to reset. Scientific research in endocrinology shows that it's not just the amount of food, but the frequency of eating that influences insulin levels throughout the day. Every time you eat, insulin rises, and if you eat often enough, it never fully comes down. This is where the trap becomes invisible, because you're not overeating, you're not binging. You're simply following common advice, eating every few hours to keep your metabolism active. But metabolically, your body is being kept in storage mode, and the consequences go deeper than just stalled fat loss. Over time, repeated insulin spikes can contribute to reduced insulin sensitivity, a condition where your cells stop responding efficiently to insulin signal. This means your body needs to produce more insulin to manage the same amount of glucose, creating a cycle of chronically elevated levels. Higher insulin, reduced fat burning, increased fat storage. And slowly, almost silently, the system begins to shift in the wrong direction. What makes this even more challenging is how subtle it feels. There's no immediate warning sign, no dramatic symptom that tells you something is wrong, just a gradual sense of frustration, a plateau that won't break, a body that doesn't respond the way it used to. You start questioning yourself. Maybe you're not trying hard enough. Maybe you need to eat less, exercise more, push harder. But the truth is, pushing harder against a hormonal barrier doesn't fix the problem. It amplifies the stress, because the issue isn't effort, it's the signal. And the signal is being shaped by choices that seem healthy on the surface, but don't support the metabolic state required for fat burning. This is why understanding food goes beyond calories. It's about how your body responds, how quickly blood sugar rises, how much insulin is released, and how long it stays elevated. Even foods considered nutritious can have a significant impact if consumed in a way that leads to repeated spikes. This doesn't mean those foods are bad. It means context matters, timing matters, frequency matters, and most importantly, awareness matters. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. You begin to recognize how often your body is being pulled out of fat-burning mode, how little time it actually spends in a state where it can access stored energy, and how small adjustments can begin to shift everything, not extreme changes, not restrictive rules, just a different approach, spacing meals further apart, allowing insulin to rise and fall naturally instead of stacking spike on top of spike, choosing whole foods in their natural form, preserving the fiber and structure that slows absorption, being mindful of added sugars, even in products marketed as healthy, reducing reliance on constant snacking, giving your body the chance to transition between fuel sources. These changes may seem simple, but their impact is profound because they address the root cause, not just the surface. And as insulin patterns begin to stabilize, something remarkable happens. Your body starts to trust the process again. Energy becomes more consistent. Hunger signals become clearer, less urgent, less reactive. And the constant cycle of spikes and crashes begins to fade. This is not about perfection. There will always be variation. There will always be flexibility. But understanding the hidden trap gives you control. It shifts you from guessing to knowing, from frustration to clarity. Because the truth is, most people aren't failing their diet. They're being misled by what looks healthy, but doesn't support their metabolic goal. And once you recognize that, once you begin to align your choices with how your body actually works, you don't have to fight as hard. You don't have to push as much. You simply remove the obstacles and allow your body to do what it was designed to do. Burn fat efficiently, naturally, and sustainably. But it all starts with seeing the trap, the one most people never realize they're in until they finally step out of it. There is a moment, quiet, invisible, almost undetectable, when your body makes a powerful decision, a decision that determines whether you stay trapped in energy storage or finally begin releasing the fat you've been trying so hard to lose. Most people never notice this moment. Most people never reach it because it only happens under one condition, when your internal chemistry shifts and insulin finally falls low enough to unlock the door your body has kept closed for so long. This is the metabolic shift, the turning point where fat burning truly begins, and it changes everything. Up until this point, your body has been running on incoming fuel, dependent on the next meal, the next snack, the next spike in blood sugar to keep energy stable. But when insulin drops, something remarkable begins to happen. Your body looks inward, not outward, for energy. Stored fat, once protected, once locked away, is now seen as a resource, a fuel, a lifeline. And through a process known as lipolysis, your body starts breaking down fat molecules into fatty acids, releasing them into the bloodstream, making them available for energy production. This isn't theory. This is well-established physiology. When insulin levels are low, hormone-sensitive enzymes inside fat cells become active, allowing fat to be mobilized and used. And as this process continues, part of that fat is converted into ketones, an alternative energy source that can fuel the brain, the muscles, and nearly every cell in your body. This is the state known as nutritional ketosis, not a trend, not a shortcut, but a deeply rooted survival mechanism that humans have relied on for thousands of years. Long before constant access to food, the human body evolved to handle periods of scarcity, to function without frequent meals, to tap into its own reserves, and maintain energy even in the absence of incoming fuel. That system still exists, but in today's world, it's rarely activated because the modern lifestyle rarely allows insulin to fall long enough for this shift to occur. Instead, the body is kept in a continuous loop of feeding, digesting, storing, and waiting for the next input. And over time, it forgets how to access what it already has. But the moment insulin drops, the memory returns, the system reactivates, and the transition begins. At first, it may feel unfamiliar. Your body has been conditioned to rely on quick energy, so when that supply slows down, there can be a temporary adjustment period. Energy may fluctuate, hunger signals may feel different. But beneath the surface, something powerful is happening. Your metabolism is learning to switch. This ability, known as metabolic flexibility, is one of the most important markers of long-term health. It's the capacity to move between fuel sources, to burn carbohydrates when available, and fat when needed, without disruption. And when this flexibility is restored, the body becomes more efficient, more stable, more resilient. Scientific studies in metabolic health have shown that individuals with improved metabolic flexibility tend to have better energy regulation, improved insulin sensitivity, and more effective fat utilization. This isn't about forcing your body into a state. It's about allowing it to return to one it was designed for. As the shift continues, energy begins to stabilize, no longer dependent on frequent meals. Your body starts generating a steady supply of fuel from within. This often leads to a noticeable reduction in cravings, because when your body can access stored fat, it no longer signals urgency for immediate energy. Hunger becomes quieter, more controlled, more intentional. And this is where the real transformation begins, because for the first time, you're not constantly thinking about food. You're not chasing the next meal to maintain energy. You're not trapped in the cycle of spikes and crashes. Instead, there's a sense of balance, a sense of control, a sense that your body is finally working with you or not against you. And the fat that once seemed impossible to lose begins to be used gradually, consistently, sustainably, not through force, but through alignment. Research continues to support the benefits of this metabolic shift, showing that lower insulin levels are associated with increased fat oxidation, meaning the body is actively using fat as a primary fuel source. And as this process becomes more efficient, endurance improves, energy becomes more stable, and the reliance on constant eating decreases. But perhaps the most powerful change isn't physical, it's mental. Because when your body is no longer driven by unstable energy levels, your mind becomes clearer, more focused, more present. Ketones, in particular, have been studied for their role in providing a steady energy supply to the brain, which may contribute to improved cognitive clarity in some individuals. And while experiences can vary, many people report feeling more alert, more consistent, less affected by the highs and lows that once defined their day. This is the true power of the metabolic shift. It's not just about fat loss, it's about restoring a system that modern habits have disrupted. It's about reconnecting with a biological rhythm that has always been there, waiting to be activated. But here's the part most people miss. This shift cannot happen if insulin remains elevated, no matter how clean your diet is, no matter how hard you exercise. If the signal doesn't change, the state doesn't change. And without that state, fat burning remains out of reach. This is why understanding the timing of food, the frequency of eating, and the impact of different foods on insulin becomes so critical. Because these factors determine whether your body stays locked or finally opens. And once it opens, everything changes. You don't have to chase fat loss anymore. You create the conditions and your body responds. You stop forcing outcomes and start supporting processes. And over time, what once felt impossible becomes natural. Because the truth is, your body was never broken. It was simply following instructions. Instructions shaped by signals. Signals shaped by habits. And when those signals change, the outcome changes. So the next time you feel stuck, the next time progress slows, don't just look at what you're doing. Look at what your body is being told to do. Because behind every result, there is a signal. And behind that signal, there is a switch that determines whether fat is stored or burned, a switch that most people never fix. But once you understand it, once you allow your body to reach that quiet, powerful moment where insulin falls and the shift begins, you realize something profound. Fat burning was never the problem. The problem was never giving your body the chance to start.